Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name's Christiana Davidson. I'm a psychotherapist and a hypnotherapist, and I specialize in all things to do with narcissistic family dysfunction and how it impacts adults later in life, especially in relationships. And we're going to look at the origins of the narcissistic relationship today. The title today is There an Echo in the Room? Now, you'll know what I'm referring to there. This Greek myth from where narcissism gets its meaning is all about the relationship between Narcissus and Echo. Now, the funny thing about it, in that Greek myth, we often, and quite ironically, put most of our attention on to Narcissus. He's the center of the show. And, understandably, Echo is sort of off in the wings. We don't really focus much of our thought on her role. But there is this quiet, but also vocal figure in the legend whose name is Echo. And she is aptly named this because all that she's able to do is to echo or to repeat what others say. So she listens out for what others say, and then she repeats it back. And in that sense, she's lost her ability to speak her own words, her own mind, her own opinions, her own thoughts. She's unable to express herself. She can only express what others express. Now, Echo falls so in love with this young man, Narcissus. She really idealizes him in many ways, and she becomes his follower, follows him around like a lost puppy, in the hope that he will tell her loving, kind things, which she can then repeat back to him to show her love for him. And it's kind of like this sort of bubble that these two are in. There's nobody else around. It's a sort of like it almost feels like this sort of fantasy type relationship, not of the real world. So when Narcissus at some point says to his own reflection, "I love you," then Echo is able to tell him too of her love for him. And the way that she shows her love for him is by echoing him. So she's basically saying, "I love you," by echoing you. This is how I demonstrate my love for you, is by echoing you back to you. Now, bear in mind, we're talking about all of this in order to explore a bit of the relationship between this original legend and the narcissistic family system, or the narcissistic parent. The thing is, Echo cannot really get Narcissus' attention away from himself. He's fixated on his own reflection. And in fact, Echo is really simply there as part of his reflection, as is everything else in that scene, not just his mirror image in the water. Everything around is all a reflection for Narcissus. So Echo is desperate for him to return her love, but he only uses her as part or a means of idealizing himself. And he is the center of the world around which she must be subservient. She must keep him as the center of her world, in other words. Both of these characters end up dead in the end. It's a tragic tale. They end up dead as a result of this relationship. One from being so self-absorbed, and the other from the depression, which stems from the self-annihilation, the loss of self. Now, this is a wonderful allegory for the narcissistic family system, I would suggest. You know, Narcissus represents the narcissistic parent who does not wish to see or know her child as separate from him or herself. The only role for the child is to be part of the parent's own reflection. So the child must be an echo. And the parent then is the center of the world, not the child. The child is there to echo the false self of the parent by becoming themselves a sort of false self image. They have to take on an image and suppress the authentic self. And this image simply reflects back to the parent who the parent is. The parent is actually only able to see themselves in the child, which is either an idealized or a discarded, rejected part, and then to either love or despise that part. So there we get the golden child, the scapegoat. So children are the mirror that allows the narcissistic parent to say, oh, I love me. That's me. That's not me. I don't love that. That's not me. I don't love that. So when the narcissistic parent therefore says, I love you, they actually say, I love me. They're saying, I love you for being a good mirror reflection of me. In public, especially, but also privately. The narcissistic parent needs you to remind them constantly of the image, of their false self-image. You need to echo it, and echoes bounce all over the place, don't they? You hear the phrase repeated many times. Same as the narcissistic child, they've got to learn the words that are going to boost the narcissistic parent or soothe them, or that they want to hear. They've got to echo it. And as you know, echo repeats narcissists' own words. And, you know, what this symbolizes, I think, is her enmeshment with him. She's abandoned herself in order to be of any worth to him, in order for him to finally see and love her back. But of course, he's too wrapped up in himself, in maintaining this reflection of feeding off of this reflection of himself in the water. So Echo gives her voice away in order to be loved. And this is what ultimately causes her deep depression. She suppressed her pain, her true self, and it causes her ultimate demise, her loss of life. You know, so many adult children of narcissistic parents do exactly the same. They find that they lose touch or connection with who they really are. They come to me saying, I don't really know myself. It's like there's a connection that's not there to my authentic self, to my gut. I don't trust. I don't fully trust myself to make the right decisions. I'm full of self-doubt. I've got to constantly be checking what everyone else would do and then echo that. And it's because they've learned, excuse me, to hear only the narcissistic parent's words in their heads and to respond accordingly. They've become but an echo of the narcissistic parent for fear of speaking authentically, for fear of having an identity that is separate, that may not be what the narcissistic parent wants to see. And in terms of the scapegoat, of stepping out of the role of being the rejected one, of believing that they're not unlovable. That's what the narcissistic parent doesn't want to see in the scapegoat. And if we think about it, our voices, how we use them, I mean, they're vital to our communication with other people. It really is how we truly connect with others in some ways. I mean, yes, of course, we've got body language and things like that, but with the voice, you can speak, what's really going on inside. You can really open up and share intimacy into your emotional world, into who you are, really. And without the ability to speak for ourselves in some way, shape, or form, we are but a shell in some ways. There's no ability really to assert yourself as an individual personality. So Echo spends her whole life highly attuned and focused and centered around Narcissus. How many adult children of narcissistic parents do this even in adulthood? Their whole lives are still centered around the beck and call of the narcissistic parent who demands that you, as their child, their belonging, keep them as the main focus of your life. And that's something you can't escape from because you're an extension of them. You're their possession. You are their supply. You're their echo. Is that not enough for you? How many adult children of narcissistic parents are like Echo? She has to respond and react to his every word and move in order to tell him what she really wants to say, which is, I love you. But she has to settle for I love me instead. She has to settle for being in the wings and being a reflection, an echo, so that instead of being able to feel reciprocal love, she settles for serving his image, for supporting, for I love me, for Narcissus's ability to love himself. That's what love becomes. Furthering Narcissus' ability to love himself. So many adult children try so desperately and feel such deep love for their narcissistic parent despite it all, despite it being unrequited, because they also settle for I love me instead. Seeing the narcissistic parent full of supply and happy about themselves or being a good reflection of them becomes your experience of love, seeing them able to love themselves through you is what you come to know love is. So it's often an experience of like you can't find that connection like Echo with Narcissus. You just can't get through. You can't shatter the false image. You can't get any deeper than that shallow water. Because it's all this big show or this appearance, this public appearance or a sort of falseness, pretend act. They are unreachable, and this causes deep depression in children, and it translates into adulthood too. So ultimately, in this legend, Echo is just simply, at the end of the day, supply, despite her genuine love. And this is very hard to accept when you come from a narcissistic family and you have a narcissistic mother or father, that you are literally supply. And if you don't comply with being Echo, you're out of the picture. There's no room for you here. The only other person that Narcissus can be with is an Echo, or else there is no relationship. Now, how do we break this spell? Well, Echo herself really offers us a few solutions, I suggest. And if you have any other ideas, please share them. I suggest that number one, she says, well, in order to break the spell, you've got to stop echoing. You've got to stop reflecting back the false self to the narcissist. You've got to stop attuning to them and stop enabling them. Number two, you have to rediscover your own voice and start to use it with others and actually allow yourself to be different. Not keep looking to what other people are doing to know, am I acceptable or not? No, be boldly you. Number three, start to really emphasize with yourself instead of feeling great empathy for the narcissist. Number four, realize there is nothing you can do to save Narcissus. In fact, if there is any hope of that, it would be for Echo to finally either speak up and call it out, or to walk away from the scene and say, this isn't good enough for me. This isn't working. This isn't healthy for me. I'm out of here. I want real love. And number five, if Echo did discover her voice, her assertiveness, I wonder what her new name would be. What do you think? What ideas do you have? I was racking my brains trying to think, and all I could come up with was speaker upper. So if you have any ideas on that, please do. I think, look, the work I do with clients is all about this, really. It's about breaking Echo out of the projections of the narcissistic parent, so that my clients then can reconnect with their authentic voice, their authentic selves, and begin to flourish, and to see clearly the system that they were brought up in, and the illness, disease, with the narcissistic parent, to see it clearly, and to know that it wasn't them. Okay, I hope that was helpful, everyone. If you have any need for support, I'm here. Please check out my website, www.delightinyou.com. You can also sign up for a free consultation, and we can get you started straight away on one of my courses. They are fantastic. It's time to break you free in time for the new year. Let's do this. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye now.